Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and today we are doing our retrospective of the top 10 board games from 2020. This is a look back at all of the games. Maybe we played some new ones that hadn't shown up on that previous list and see where maybe they moved based on last time. So there are going to be some reoccurring games. But that being said, this is a very special video because this is actually our 100th top 10 list on the channel, and this is actually the first top 10 list we ever did on the channel was the top 10 board games from 2020. And I think that's so cool to see how this has kind of come full circle, my development as a content creator in this space. I mean, look at old Mackenzie here, 1 year younger, and he's sitting just in front of a collection of games. He's stuttering at the camera, and I just really appreciate the support from the community and just how I've grown here and the feedback that I've received on everything. Please continue to do that in the comments. I do want to make sure that this channel is growing in the right direction, and I just feel that this is a fantastic community that we've created here through SideGame LLC's online YouTube presence. So super excited to be here, and once again, so happy for the support. Can't say it enough. Thank you so much. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the list. And one last thing, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It's the best way to help us grow, and it shows your support for the channel. Thank you. Let's go ahead and begin with the honorable mentions. Now, first off, the honorable mention here is Pandemic Legacy Season 0. Now, we've recently done kind of a re-ranking of everything in the library, and due to that re-ranking, Pandemic Legacy no longer fits the eligibility for this list because I find this more of an expansion to the Pandemic Legacy experience. Now, that being said, this is absolutely phenomenal. It was my number 2 ranked game last year for the 2020 list, and I do think it's still absolutely amazing. This is one that you're going to work cooperatively to be fighting off something, and I'm not going to go into any detail here. I don't want to give any spoilers. So this is the original setup for the game. There are these agents around the board, and it's going to be up to you to do your best to navigate through this map and play your cards right. A fantastic experience. If you like the Pandemic formula, this is a no-brainer buy. Get this game. It's absolutely amazing. So a credible experience. That's my honorable mention here. That's Pandemic Legacy Season 0. Now, that being said, let's start off with the list with number 10. And number 10 is going to go to the game Tekkenu Obelisk of the Sun. Now, last time this appeared as number 8, and it's gone down a little bit, but still fantastic game. This is a dice drafting game where there's an obelisk on the board that's going to determine the strength and kind of the values of these dice. Based on where you take them, they're going to go on one side of this scale. Some of them are going to be tainted, some are going to be pure, and you're trying to get them as close to 0 as possible. So, do you pick dice in order to get the strengths based on the high value, the stronger the die is usually, or are you going to take them for their specific values to make sure your scale is balanced so that you go first in the turn or later? Some great decisions here, and I really like how straightforward the actions are, and I love how the board is laid out. Now, my favorite part about this game are the technology cards. In this one, you have no special abilities or powers. However, once you start taking the Thoth action, you'll be able to grab these cards that give you some function that modify the different actions on the board, and I really, really appreciate that and like that. It allows you to dive into some of the newer aspects of the game and increases the potency of your actions, and it feels very satisfying when this game comes with so many limited turns. You only have about, I think it's 16 turns in the entire game, so the game is extremely tight. You really want to do everything, but you can't, and I think those technology cards are really fun to try to skirt that line of being able to complete everything. Fantastic theme, beautiful colors, and I really love this. One of my favorite T-Series games, fantastic dice drafting game. It's number 10, Tekkenu. My number 9 is going to go to the board game Etherfields. This is a dream-crawling game where you're going to be wandering through dreams, having experiences using a deck building and this fantastic map system. Now, this was number 3 on the list last year, but I still think it's very, very awesome and does its job extremely well. I'm not going into anything too deeply here, no spoilers, but my favorite things in this game have to be the characters and the deck building, as well as the scenarios themselves. So first off, the characters are really cool. They have these multi-use cards that you can use one time for their symbols, or some will have abilities where you can seal them and get rid of them temporarily for super powerful effects. And you want to keep your original cards because on the back of them they have special abilities. My 2 favorite characters are the Free Spirit and the Gambler. Gambler lets you do some rerolls, which is super useful, and then the Free Spirit lets you kind of get little value out of tokens and sealing cards. And I really enjoy this. You can really be flexible in the way you work. So I really like that. The core cards have those special abilities on the back, so when they're on top of your deck, they're useful to keep there to be able to use that special ability. Really fantastic. The other cool thing is when you buy new cards, you have a lot of choice in that, and they also have really cool multi-use functions. Love that, and you're going to be finding cards along the way to add your deck too. So neat. The other thing I really like is the scenario setup, is that each of them is a pack, and once you're in a scenario, you have that ready to go, and it's super self-contained, and it's really, really well done. Each dream feels very different. They dive into aspects of dreaming, and I think this is so fascinating. I played this with my wife, and she was talking about how she had experienced something like this and how well it was implemented in the game, and I have to agree. They're fantastic little experiences, and one that I do find myself excited to play again and again, and I cannot wait until Wave 2 comes because I'm diving right back into it, finish those first 2 campaigns, and I just want more. Fantastic game. That's Etherfield's my number 9. My number 8 is going to Warp's Edge, a bag building game that is extremely straightforward but extremely modular, and I really appreciate that. The whole premise of the game is you have a ship that has some chips that you start off with, as well as a personalized selection of special ability chips, and then you have this onslaught of these fighters that you're going to have to be taking out. Each round, you're going to be pulling chips from the bag and either using the energy to activate abilities or buy new chips, using those lasers to blast off the different ships, or dodging them and evading them using maneuvers. And based on how you defeat the different characters, you are going to be getting all sorts of new abilities or chips. Like here, if you kill it using lasers, you get a new token to your bag, but if you kill it by dodging, you get to draw extra cards. And some of those may be useful for getting immediate value or maybe building your deck for the future. I really like this system, and it makes a lot of sense. And the other cool thing about this game are the bosses. Each boss is going to have its own way to play. The base game comes with, I think, 3, and the expansion adds more, but they're double-sided and feature some really unique takes on this system, and I think it's fantastic. I love the way that it challenges you, the plug-and-play customization of the fighters and the chips, as well as the different smaller ships and the motherships. There's just so many things. I feel like I've said ships so many times. But this game didn't even show up on the list last year, so I'm happy that it found its way on this year. But a fantastic solo experience. This is Warp's Edge, my number 8. My number 7 is going to the game Macro Micro Crime City, another game that did not show up on the list last year, but it comes in at number 7 this year, and this is a crime-solving game through the use of a Where's Waldo function. Now, my favorite part about this game is the way that the questions and the case is fed to you throughout the experience. You're going to get a question, and that question is going to lead you across this gigantic map, and you're going to be looking for specific clues, and I think that is so fantastic. A lot of these detective games are going to have the questions at the end of the scenario, and you kind of don't really know exactly what you're looking for, but this game has clear objectives for you to follow and clear answers with actually finding pieces of evidence on this map and showing them to you in really fun, unique ways. Once again, I'm not going to get into any big spoilers here, but this system is so solid, so straightforward, and it's so accessible. You can play this with pretty much anyone, and the new edition, the Macro Micro Crime City Full House, has age ratings on these, so if you're not really comfortable with showing some of the cases that appear in the first one to others, that's a great option in order to make sure that they're appropriate. So really, really fascinating game, really fun, and one that gets consistently played. We liked it so much that we framed our copy of the original, and we actually have it set up so that anybody who walks into the gaming space can go up to it and just grab a case and play. Oh, it's so cool. I love this game. Amazing experience, amazing game. This is Macro Micro Crime City, my number 7. My number 6 is going to the game Nidavellir, an auctioning game where you play as dwarves collecting new soldiers for your band to go fight the dragon Fafnir. So what this really translates to, it's a really unique auction game where you're going to be doing coin crafting, and I love this here. Now, this is another game that did not make it to the list last year, which is awesome because I get to shine some light on it here, but this game's biggest feature and the thing that I love most about it is the auction system and the set collection. So the auction system here is really neat. Everyone simultaneously puts their coins down on these different taverns, and then they'll reveal them one at a time. Whoever wins gets first pick at the different taverns, and you're picking these different characters in order to gain sets. You can either go long in order to get super fantastic bonuses at the end. If you have a certain amount of a specific color, you get extra things, especially in the middle of the game. You'll get these mid-round bonuses that are very crucial. Very, very awesome. Or you can go wide in order to access heroes. And these hero cards are really where the juice and meat of the game is because they give you all of these special abilities. So they're all set up on these big banners there, and you're going to pick them, and they're going to give you extra banners, special effects. Some have one-time abilities. Some just give you continuous continuous game-breaking effects, and I really like that there are so many options from the get-go. It can be very intimidating for new players because they're not really sure the flow of the game, and they're not really sure exactly which heroes to go down and what kind of strategies are available. But after a couple of plays, this game is absolutely amazing. This is one that you're going to want to continuously play, and it's fantastic. I really, really like Nidavellir, and I think expansion adds some new characters and new choices, as well as new scoring methods, and I think they are welcome to the game. If you're going to get this game, go all in, get that Thingvellir expansion as well. It's absolutely wonderful. I love Nidavellir. That is my number 6. My number 5 is going to the game Project Elite, a real-time shoot-'em-up game where there are aliens, and you're going to have to do your best to defend from them. You'll have 2-minute real-time phases where you're rolling dice, and you'll use those dice to shoot them up, move around, and activate the different objectives. Super fantastic. Now, this game actually went up in my rankings here. Now at number 5, it was at number 6 on our last list, and I think that this is one of the best in the class of real-time gaming. So Project Elite here has this fantastic map, and that's one of my favorite features of it, is how clean the map system is. There are these little arrows on the board that are going to dictate where the aliens go, and that's another thing that I really enjoy is the action system and how the aliens actually move and react. So when you're playing, you'll be rolling your sets of dice, and there will be some dice with these red faces, and when you roll them, you have to move those characters on the board every time you roll red. And this is so awesome because it simulates these characters dodging and moving, because maybe one of your other players is about to take out an alien, and then you roll a movement and you move it out of the way right at the second that they're about to take it out. How cool is that? Like, that's a great way to capture this frantic, crazy firefight that's happening with these aliens, and I think it's amazing. I really love the flow of this system. I love the frantic nature of the phases, and I love how you're able to make a plan but also need to act on your feet with those 2-minute time periods and that break phases in between. Oh, this is such a well done game. Starship Troopers in a board game with incredible expansions. The bosses make sense, and I'm really loving the exosuit expansions. You can load up and have these crazy difficult scenarios, but you are also super powerful. It feels fantastic. Or the new bosses that are just included, like the Deathmaw Valley one with this huge sandworm that is just this looming threat that is going to end the game quickly, which just makes it even that much more intense. Whew. Amazing game. Could talk about this one for a while. It's my number 5, Project Elite. Number 4 is going to go to the game Dune Imperium. This showed up actually at number 4 last year, which is awesome because it is that good. This takes the Dune IP, puts it into this fantastic deck building, worker placement game that is all about concise deck building and using your actions appropriately. You have a lot of really cool push and pull with the combat system here. Every time you put troops into this combat, at the end of the round, those troops will fight. And you're trying to ensure that you get victory, but also not trying to spend too much. So there's this really good push and pull as to how much can you get away with, how can you skirt this value from your plays, and I really, really like that. There's some great thematic ties with the different alliance tracks, and the system itself is just so solid. Now, my favorite part about this game, though, is that combat system. I love that the passing turns, when you play your cards, you can either use them to put people on the board, or you can pass, and a lot of these passing cards will have abilities that'll trigger for that combat, and I really, really like that. There's some really cool ones that'll give you extra combat power. There are some that let you retreat troops, some that let you send extra out. So you can do a lot of surprises with the cards in your hand, as well as be more direct with your conflict intentions through the cards you're playing. This is such a fantastic experience. If you like the Dune IP, this is a no-brainer, but if you just enjoy deck building styles and worker placement in general, this is one that you have to check out. The new expansion will be here soon, and I cannot wait. It looks like it adds some new spaces and new technologies, which look to really open up the game design, and I'm just so excited to experience more. I love this already, and I just can't wait to dive in. So I'm super excited to talk about this one. That's number 4, Dune Imperium. Number 3 is going to go to the game Super Fantasy Brawl. Now, this is a 2-player head-to-head skirmish game where you take the role of 3 different characters, and you'll pit those characters against others using this fantastic action system using cards. You'll use the cards to perform actions on the board while trying to not only take out the opponent's characters, but also complete these mini objectives to try to get 5 trophies. First to 5 wins. Super simple, super straightforward, but so many small tactical choices with long-term strategy based on the positioning and trying to line up to objectives. I love this game. Now, I played this game after my initial list, so this was not on the list last year. This is a 10 out of 10 game for me. It's my favorite in this genre because it balances the quick gameplay of something skirmish-like and ties in the objectives into a way where it's not just about running up and punching the other person. And I love this. But my favorite part about this game has to be the cards. So each character comes with their own set of 6 cards, 3 for each color, and I love the way the system works. They're all unique. However, your deck is only gonna be 18 cards. You have 6 from each of the 3 characters you play, you shuffle it up, and you get to know those cards super well during your 15-30 minute play of this game. Amazing. It's so easy to play, it's so easy to pick up, and the cards just make sense, the characters make sense, and it's so fun having to pick and choose between the way that these different cards interact. I love the combos that you can form with the different characters that you combine, and I just love how approachable this system is. The core system of activating cards is super, super fantastic. I love how you have some choices, but you have also limitations, and I also like that there are basic actions you can use the cores for to kind of curve out the luck factor in the game. I also love that you can do some planning actions and stack things. I'm going all day on this one. Super Fantasy Brawl is a fantastic skirmish game. If you are in the mood for a 2-player head-to-head, this is the one to pick up. So it's my number 3 Super Fantasy Brawl. My number 2 is going to the game Capital Lux 2 Generations, an abstracted area control game that uses cards and modularity to create some very tense situations throughout the entire experience. Now, the way the game works is very straightforward. On your turn, you play a card in front of you into your home base for points. However, you got to make sure that those do not go over the capital's limits. For example, in the center of the table here, there are 6 green total cards, so you can't go past that number. The other option you can do is you can play that card to the center, to the capital, and that is going to trigger an additional ability. But when you do that, you're going to increase that threshold of points for everyone else. So it's this interesting tension of, do I keep it, try to score points for me, or place it in the center and help everybody, but get an additional bonus? And that's the beauty of this game. It's so simple in the way it works, but there are so many things that happen from each decision you make. You start the game with a drafting phase where you're going to be trying to set up your plans for the game, and then you'll see how they work. You're playing cards into these different areas, triggering abilities, and doing your best to manipulate the situation to win the majorities in each of these areas, because if you do, you get an additional bonus. This game is absolutely amazing. I love the way that the modularity fits in. The different abilities for the different cards are fantastic. I love how some have to deal with drawing, some deal with maybe increasing that minimum point range for yourself, and some are more so wild cards, and I love the different feel of them for each of the games. And my favorite part about this game has to be just the way the game flows. On your turn, you have that decision. Where do you play your card? And there's so many things that result, so many consequences that occur from simple actions. And I love this. It adds to very tense decisions, very tense moments, but very thoughtful play. And it's just one that is just so smooth to pick up and play, and one that when you finish, you might play right away because you want to just see what one small change to the special abilities of the center might add. This is a fantastic card game and one that you need to pick up stat. Amazing filler. That is Capital Lux 2 Generations, my number 2. My number 1 has to go to Hallertau. Now, this is a Uwe Rosenberg worker placement game where you're taking these pieces, putting them out onto this board, and then gathering resources and using those resources to improve the shed that's in front of you. So the shed requires different resources for each piece, and once you get them all slid over, your large shed is going to move, and that increases the amount of workers you get every round. Now, at its core, this game is extremely straightforward. You get resources, feed those resources into your building here, but there's lots of little tiny things that make all of these things work. You have fields that represent crop rotation, so the more you use them, the worse they get, but the more that you let them lay, the better they get. You have sheep that have a short lifespan, but will produce your resource and points at the end of the game, and it's super fascinating the way that it all ties together. But the cherry on top here, and the reason this game is so elevated in my opinion, are the card systems. As you can see, there's a huge display of cards here. There are 4 different decks of cards, and each of these cards has different ways and different objectives that you are going to be trying to do to play them. And I love this. The satisfaction that you get from playing the cards in this game is really where it's at. Some things will just require you, hey, you need to have this thing. Some with these arrows, you have to pay this thing. And so you're going to have this hand of 5 cards right from the bat and say, how can I satisfy these things? I pay this tool, I get this sheep, I get this sheep, I pay this thing, it's so satisfying. Whether it be multiplayer or solo, this is a game that you can pick up and have a blast with, just delving into those cards. And I absolutely love it. I love that there are benefits to every route. I love that there are so many different choices when it comes to the sets of cards that you play with. And I love that there's just so many interesting ways that the game has used the mechanisms present and put them into the cards. There are things that care about maybe the amount of cards you've already played, things that care about maybe the amount of sheep that are left over on the cards. They've taken every single facet that's even in the threads of this design and say, how can we make this interesting? How can we turn it into a goal? And how can we make it satisfying for the players? I love this game. This is one that is consistently hitting the table, one that is consistently one that I'm pulling out to play. I love Holytow. I think that it's so satisfying, just those small check boxes, but the way that it all wraps into this really well done system of resource conversion. Amazing. I love this game. My number one did not appear on the list. Capital X2 also did not appear on the list last year, so happy we were introduced to them in 2021. Amazing games. And that's the list. Those are the top 10 board games from 2020. The look back, the retrospective, these are the ones that, after a year of vetting, have really stood that test. Amazing games. Now, some games that did not show up on the list, Dwellings of Eldervale, and Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef, Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, Altar Quest, and Forgotten Water, still great games, but these 10 games are a cut above the rest. Absolutely incredible. So if you have any questions about any of the games that you saw here, please let me know down in the comments below. What are your top 10 board games from 2020? Were there any games that appeared on this list that you really like or that you want to try in the future? Or are there any games that missed the list that I should have on here or I should give a try? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for all the support through all these videos, just from everything. I really do mean it. Thank you so much for this development. So I really appreciate it. But that's everything. Thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.